I've covered number stations extensively on the channel in recent months, and a comment that keeps doing the rounds is that the famous UVB-76 buzzer is part of a dead hand system. This means in simple terms that the buzzer transmits 24/7, and if the signal is interrupted or stops, it's time for Russia to launch an all-out nuclear attack. This simply isn't true and is just a myth, and in this video I'm going to explain why. Now, usually at this point I'd put my disclaimer in that goes something along the lines of the footage in this video is stock footage filmed by me and is not related to number stations, as I get one or two viewers hammering me for not travelling to Russia to film these places. So in this video I thought I'd show you these absolutely amazing scans from Soviet era radio magazines from the 1950s and 1960s, which I'm sure you'll agree are something else. So firstly, what is the buzzer? Well, it's widely and actually wrongly known as UVB-76. The call sign wasn't actually UVB-76, but rather UZB-76, and this has changed in the years since. It was first heard in the 1970s and has become a bit of a cult entity due to its almost constant buzzing on 4625 and 6998 kHz. The first known location of the buzzer was in Poverovo in the Moscow district, but this has been derelict since 2010, and urban explorers claim to have found evidence of a transmitter on 4625 in a logbook. It's now believed to be transmitting from near St. Petersburg as well as Moscow. Now, the waters have been muddied slightly with the suggestion that the buzzer is linked to Perimeter, Russia's nuclear attack system that is allegedly still in use, and this is where the suggestion of a dead hand signal came about. So let me tell you a bit about Perimeter. Perimeter is a Cold War era automated nuclear weapons control system that was set up by the Soviet Union and is still used by the Russian Federation today. Perimeter is a fail-deadly and mutual assured destruction deterrence that can automatically start the procedure to launch an intercontinental ballistic missile by sending a pre-entered highest authority order to all or selected command posts and even individual silos if a nuclear strike is detected by any means. Systems are in place to detect a nuclear blast by monitoring changes to seismic activity, light, radioactivity, and even pressure sensors that can work when their commanding elements are destroyed. Perimeter was developed as an alternative and backup system for the Kazbek system for all units armed with nuclear weapons. The theory being, if the Kazbek command system and the link to the strategic missile forces was destroyed in an initial strike, Perimeter was there as a backup. Perimeter is fully automated and allegedly only switched on in the event that it would be needed, and has the ability to decide and launch an appropriate attack in retaliation without any human involvement. That is after all its automated checks don't detect any evidence of a military hierarchy still in place within the Russian government via communication or commands. The system also serves as protection against decisions based on unverified information by the then Soviet and later Russian leadership. So let's say the buzzer is linked to Perimeter, and let me be clear, there's zero evidence for this. Let's look at the reasons why it would be the worst idea ever. Firstly, shortwave radio would be probably the most unreliable system to use a dead hand signal on. The physics of why shortwave transmissions behave in the way they do is complex, but using a well-planned system and the right frequency at the right time of day can help a signal cover the correct target areas. Okay, so the buzzer uses two frequencies, a day and a night frequency, but what if there's an antenna fault at the transmitting end? A transmitter failure, a power cut, a backup power cut? Sure, there may be many backups, but we've seen the buzzer fail multiple times. Despite what quotes on the internet may say about the buzzer, it's out more than the gas, to coin an antiquated phrase. It fails regularly. These failures range from audio and signal distortion to complete outages. Likewise, what if all of the above fails at the receive end? Atmospheric disturbances and electrical interference can cause issues with shortwave broadcasts, and of course man-made interference sources such as jammers can wipe out the largest of signals. Would any government really use such a temperamental and unreliable system to decide the fate of the world? Probably not. You could argue that perimeter monitors for the lack of presence of a chain of command and that the buzzer is the last link in the chain. Let's say there is no chain of command in Russia anymore. Why launch a strike in retaliation? There's no point if everyone's gone. And let's not forget the poor guy that would have to override perimeter every single time the buzzer goes off to let it know that there's still a chain of command and everything's okay. This happens a lot. Remember I said at the beginning about muddying the waters? Well, we quite often hear voice messages being sent out when the buzzer comes to a stop, which some believe are commands to various military districts or even spies, but let's not forget that the buzzing continued uninterrupted for about 15 years before we heard the first voice broadcasts. It's also been described as a channel marker to keep a frequency clear, but why? Shortwave is not, as I'm sure you'll be aware by now, effective for anything life-changing or that important when it comes to military planning. Maybe it's used as the command frequency to initiate a more secure form of communications. Other diplomatic stations do this. They send a signal on one frequency in the open to establish a link on another frequency for a secure digital form of communications. This means we still don't know the exact reason for the buzzer. The most likely explanation is that it's used for ionosphere research. It was described in the Russian Journal of Earth Sciences as a high-frequency Doppler system where radio waves are reflected from ionosphere in homogeneities. Changes of an ionosphere state can be caused by solar, geophysical and seismic events. This method involves comparing a continuous radio transmission which is reflected by the ionosphere with a stable basic generator. The continuously transmitted carrier frequency currently used for this type of research matches that of the Russian buzzer. And one last thing just to muddy the waters even further, the buzzer has a cult following. It's famous, but did you know there's not just the buzzer out there transmitting loosely 24/7? There's the goose, the air horn, the pip, the squeaky wheel and the alarm. If you want to learn more about them, well, check the links below and at the end of this video for everything you need to know about these mysterious signals. One thing I can tell you, and with certainty, is that it's not, never has been, and never will be used to control Russia's nuclear weapons and the fate of the world. Often the most simple explanation is the right one.